Live for your home, that's what the father always told our protagonist. The meaning of that is that he didn't want him to desire anything and always be a shadow of his older brother. Our hero falls to the ground and the soldiers around say they never imagined that it was possible for one person against so many knights. A long-haired guy says it's expected from the brother of that person. Cheyenne leaks. The guy in front of him is Boris, who gives a twisted smile while Cheyenne asks who sent him. With daggers in hand, he wants to know if it was the Emperor. Seeing him activate the power, Boris says that mist is disgusting, and he's an assassin from the Mist group. Because of this, he will be eliminated for affiliating with the heretics. Shen wishes him good luck to try to get out of here alive, but Boris tells him that he has already placed a barrier of 9 stars in this place. The protagonist knows he has to get out of there urgently and find out who caused the incident with his brother, telling Boris that he will break any barrier he has raised when suddenly someone says enough Cheyenne. Cheyenne is startled and doesn't know what to say, remembering his father's words. Live for your home and your brother. Eshel is the house itself. The success of the house depends on the success of Eshel. Cheyenne can't believe it. The guy behind it all turns out to be his brother after all. He falls to his knees as Eshel says he must be wondering why he's there. The brother approaches and Cheyenne asks what that means. Eshel says he has done his job very well so far, but for this house and for his own brother, he will release him from sins. Cheyenne can't understand what he did wrong. Looking at his miss, Eshel says that is disgusting and long ago he was no longer human. He shouts at him saying he has been deceiving everyone. Cheyenne thinks about those words and loses his mind. What he's saying doesn't make sense. The difficulties with the Empire's throne, the subjugation of the Demon King's army, the continent unification war. He helped his brother win all of that and conquer everything he has. He punches the ground saying that the life he received he dedicated to this person, but now wants to throw him away after he has come so far, when he worked like a dog for 20 years. Cheyenne says that even if his body breaks, he will give everything he has at this moment, since he can kill him. The soldiers are incredulous at the mana he still has. Transformed, Cheyenne says his brother is shameful, being the only hero and trying to kill a family member. Eshel looks angrily and Cheyenne goes for it. He's easily defending himself while Cheyenne says he only needs one attack. He sees an opportunity and goes for the blow, but hits against a barrier. The fight is not one-on-one and Boris is protecting Eshel, who takes advantage of this to strike a blow to Cheyenne's belly. With the sword in his belly, he says he thought about letting him go easily, but he really showed the dark side in the end. It really is a relief that he never trusted him for a second. He pulls out the sword, kicks Cheyenne, and leaves with the group. Fallen, Cheyenne thinks it's a ridiculous end. It makes no sense to die like this. From one moment to the next, he attacks Eshel again, tells him to die, and puts the dagger to his neck. But an explosion of light sweeps through his body. A voice calls for a young master, and a boy wakes up sweaty in bed. The maid asks how long he's going to sleep, and Shannon asks if it's Emily. Looking at her, he thinks it's been 20 years since they met, but she looks the same as the day he met her. He recognizes the room as the one he lived in when he was younger, and it hits him that he has returned to the time when he was a child. Emily tells him to stop messing up the bed and go to training, and Cheyenne wonders what training she's talking about. Seeing that he's back in the Vert family duchy, he's sure it's the past. Maybe they are memories, but he remembers perfectly. This was on March 1st, 27 years ago, a year before he entered the academy. At the beginning of each month, there was an open training fight for the public. It was an important event even for his father. His opponent was a boy named Krantz Vert, a brother who was also born from another mother, but was the same age as him. His mother, Marguerite, was the official wife of the Duke. Because of this, her son received much more attention. Shin, being the son of an illegitimate wife, was humiliated that day, and that's when his father told him to do nothing and give up. Emily asks why he doesn't give up, while Cheyenne now says he's just going to win quickly. But he hesitates when he realizes that a simple thin sword is extremely heavy for this body. Now he is sure it's not a dream or a memory, but he hadn't heard of magic like this, and wonders if he really went back in time. Krantz says it's incredible that he didn't run away, and when Cheyenne looks at his father, he tells him to start. The brother goes up asking where he's looking, and clearly he's confident it's going to be easy. But Cheyenne wonders why he's so slow. A step to the side and the brother cuts the wind. Krantz says he's a coward and comes to give another attack, but he takes a blow to the hand that makes him drop the sword. A kick to the shin and he writhes in pain, falling to the ground crying. The mother calls for the boy while the father seems interested. Seeing him on the ground, Cheyenne knows that if he puts the blade to his neck, it's over. But he remembers that in the past, this guy tormented him, and the bullying continued even at the academy. So now he has to end him so that he never thinks of doing something like that again. In this second life given to him, he will live for himself. The fight ended with Krantz being completely defeated. The Duke postponed the plans because he wanted to talk to Cheyenne, and even put one of the knights who worked for him to keep an eye on him. In the corridor, he sees Krantz's mother and is sure she's back from the infirmary. With a mischievous smile, Cheyenne asks if her son's okay. Duchess. She says he is shameless to say that after what he did to his brother. Cheyenne ignores her, saying it's normal for this to happen in training. The Duchess says that's why you don't talk to illegitimate children. Filthy mother, filthy child, and you should have stayed picking up trash from the streets. Cheyenne looks back thinking she crossed the line and wondering if he should kill her. But he smiles, remembering that he knows how to make her suffer gradually, and tells her he will enter the same academy as Krantz, and she asks what he means by that. He wants to know if she doesn't care about her son and his graduation. She frowns and goes to slap him, asking how he dares to say something like that. But the guard protects Cheyenne and apologizes to her. But the Duke calls the boys so they can't linger there. He stares at the Duchess and tells her they are leaving. She remains with a closed face but doesn't have much to say. And Cheyenne did this because he knows the Duke's order is absolute. And the night there was ordered to protect him. In the room, his father tells him to come in. Cheyenne enters and introduces himself. While he thinks that the last time he met this guy like this was 15 years ago. Duke Wallace Verdit, who tells him to sit. People call him the protector of the continent, the one who with his magical power and military strategies stopped the demon's attack. Even if a whole army of the Demon King wanted to kill him, all he wanted was peace for this continent. But that's just how he was in Cheyenne's memories. Someone who dedicated his whole life to serving people and being an admirable man. The first thing Wallace says is that he noticed he saw the sword and dodged. Cheyenne is confused. But Wallace says that when Krantz attacked him, he saw the trajectory of the sword easily and turned aside to avoid it, and asks when he learned this kind of fencing. Cheyenne is impressed with how attentive he is and says he learned it on his own. Wallace says that as far as he knows, Cheyenne had no interest in fencing or he was hiding his skills. The explanation says he didn't want to stand out too much, while Wallace says it's amazing that he defeated Krantz even acting like that. But he stops and then asks why he hit his brother like that in the end. Cheyenne thinks, is he recognizing me as someone strong? And then says he wanted to prove something. Wallace asks what he wants to prove. Our hero says that even though he is a brother, he wanted to prove that he is better than Krantz. The father begins to laugh and says it's amazing to have such a direct and clear answer like that. He hopes that Cheyenne will one day become a strong ally of Eshel. The name Eshel scares our protagonist, who wonders why he would want to be an ally of that guy. In the end, his father's obsession with Eshel hasn't changed at all. He clenches his fists without saying anything. And Wallace says there's no reward ceremony, but he can ask for something. Cheyenne's plan is very obvious. He wants to end everything that Eshel wants to do, so he tells his father that he wants something special. The maid asks if he really wants to go to the front line of war. He says yes and is sure, but she wants to know if he's out of his mind. He has no idea how terrifying that place is. It's full of demons, monsters, and creatures. In the west of the Old Empire, there's a place known as the continent's front line, a battlefield where an endless war against the demon army has been going on for 100 years. Because of this reason, his father, who was hesitant at first, gave a condition. He would have to be qualified enough to go to that place, but Cheyenne didn't exactly know what he meant by that. But one thing is certain, he just has to get stronger and faster as soon as possible. Fortunately, he still has all the battle knowledge from before the regression, and he can feel a bit of demonic power within him, so he just has to train and eventually he'll be able to use it. Suddenly the door opens and someone shouts his name. With a hand on his hip, he recognizes his big sister Elise. Welcome. She grabs him by the collar, and the maid asks where she was while she's asking Cheyenne if he's crazy. She heard that he asked his father to go to the front line while Cheyenne is begging her to let him go. Ellis drops him to the ground and says he's getting too cocky for beating Krantz, and she yells in his face telling him to go to the roof now. Outside the castle, the two meet on a bridge, and Ellis says it will start when he touches the sword, then he just has to resist for 3 minutes and she'll allow him to go to the front line. Cheyenne wants to know if they really need to do that. Ellis ignores him and says she has a question. Is he planning to succeed in the family by any chance? Cheyenne is caught off guard, but he has no interest in that. Before he can answer, Ellis tells him to draw his sword. While Cheyenne thinks he barely regressed and he's already having to fight twice. Without saying anything, Elise goes for it because he touched the sword, which scares him without knowing why. He manages to defend her blow, and she's incredulous that he managed to block that. While Cheyenne is scared that she's really going all out against a brother 7 years younger, she steps back with grace and beauty, while thinking it's impossible for him to have blocked her long sword with that thin rapier. He's already gnashing his teeth thinking it's luck. She says he's apparently better than she thought. Cheyenne realizes he's in trouble now, and she goes for it with a sequence of cuts that's hard for Cheyenne to dodge. She jumps to prepare a vertical attack. Cheyenne manages to defend the shoulder side. Her blade slips past his and ends up going straight for her neck. Ellis is startled and Cheyenne realizes he did something stupid. He spins his arm and they both step back. Standing on the pillar, he thinks it would have been dangerous. If he hadn't moved the sword, he would have killed her now. The assassination techniques he learned are all for instant death. He doesn't know how to fight without killing someone. But she wants to continue this for 3 minutes. It will be dangerous for her. Maybe he could put mana into the blade, but he's already running out of energy. Suddenly, Elise starts chanting, asking the earth and the wind to become her sword. Cheyenne recognizes it immediately as a 6-star magic. Elise's blade starts to glow with the activation of the water blade. Cheyenne is now crying she really wants to kill me. this wasn't a test. Elise keeps repeating to herself that she can't lose under any circumstances. On the corner of the wall, Shine's problem is that if he reflects her attack, either he'll end up killing her or throwing her off. If that's the case, he jumps towards her. She raises her sword, releasing a beam of light. Shane asks for something to stop hesitating and come out already. As Elise is preparing to deliver the blow, right before impact, a knight enters between them, saying enough. He blocks Elise's attack with his sword and grabs Shen by the collar. The impact resonates throughout the castle, and the knight stares Elise down, saying she went too far against the young boy. Shen feels relieved. He had been waiting for this guy to show up, but he took too long. Seeing the blade, Elise seems to regain consciousness. She then rushes and hugs Shin, apologizing, saying she lost control. She cries on his shoulder, saying all she didn't want was for him to go to the front line because she'll be very worried. Embraced by her, Cheyenne thinks she truly is Nanin, a person who studied in one of the S-grade schools and was one of the most highly qualified swordsmen. Moreover, she had a beautiful face and was recognized as the daughter of a god. Everyone thought she would be the next continent's protector alongside Eshel. However, not long after joining the Knights of Light, she got a miserable end. He hugs her, saying he missed her, and at this time he will protect her. Elise asks the knight why he's here if he's the Duke's protector who left. The knight says he's here obeying the Duke's orders to protect the young master. Cheyenne thinks he sensed this guy's presence since he left the office. That's why he was angry he didn't show up. Passing out, he just doesn't understand why his father ordered to protect him in hiding. He then loses consciousness on Elise's shoulder, who smiles, thinking he's still a child. The next day, she returned to the academy and he resumed training to prepare to meet his father. All he could do was push his body to the maximum to increase stamina. However, poor thing is fading. 10 push-ups is the maximum he can handle. Remembering his muscular version, he thinks he'll need drastic measures. Suddenly, Emily enters the room and says Elise sent something for him. However, she says it's too stinky and asks what it is. After Elise attacked him, Shan asked for hellhound blood as a gift of apology. Because of the terrible smell and disgusting appearance, everyone thinks it's poison. But in fact, it has the power to permanently increase the stamina of whoever drinks it. Pinching her nose, Emily asks if he's really going to drink that, and he says yes. Taking a big gulp, he says he's the only one who can eat Emily's food, so this is fine. Already remembering the purple mushroom soup she made and how much worse it was, he smacks the pot on the table and says it was delicious, exuding an aura. Calling for Emily, who wants to know what happened, he looks back with red eyes and says he's going for a walk because he wants to see the effect of the medicine, and then leaves the castle. Standing aside, he says he's been wanting to come here for a long time. This was the place he came to when he wanted to be alone. Another day, a revelation from the God of Light came to Eshel, his brother, about an ancient temple that was in that place, and Cheyenne was skeptical about it. Leaning against the ground, he says no one knows about the revelation yet. The ground cracks and a red mist starts to emerge. While Cheyenne says what he's about to do, Eshel would never imagine. Looking at the underground passage, Shen wonders if it's time to go. Walking inside, he says it's different from before. This place served the God of Light until everything there was devastated. This happened during the Holy War 300 years ago. Cheyenne says a place like that is almost unbelievable. On the altar, he sees a shining sword and recognizes it as the owner of that temple. In the year 999, humans finally managed to drive out the demons from the Empire of Velhas. It was when they discovered artifacts called God's Treasures. One of the artifacts was the sacred sword Drandark, which led humans to war against the demons, the same sword that Eshel used to kill him in that tragic end. Staring at the sword, he imagines it to be related to his regression. He touches it hesitantly but then lowers his head, saying he knew nothing would happen. He then kicks it in disgust and leaves, saying this sword made him feel like trash. The shadows appear beneath the light and Cheyenne says he found what he was looking for. Looking at the ground, he says anyone would think that's the shadow of the sword. However, that's not just a shadow there. He touches the ground, saying wherever there's light, there's shadow. Stairs appear, leading to a door in the darkness. Shen opens the door hesitantly, and when he looks at the altar, he finally found what he wanted, the demonic blade Karim. He wields the dagger with an engraved crystal. Then he tells the blade it can wake up now. He continues cutting in all directions, already hesitant seeing that it seems to be sleeping. But it's quite thrilling to cut with the blade he used his whole life, really tasty. Suddenly, a shadow starts emerging from the ground, saying he was a very brave child. She asks Cheyenne if he doesn't know the meaning of taking that dagger, and he says it means it's his now. The shadow keeps growing, saying she can't believe he really woke up a demonic blade. With a macabre smile, she says it's too late. She swoops towards him, shouting that his body now belongs to her. But Cheyenne grabs her by the neck, which confuses her. The face emerges from the shadows, and Cheyenne says he didn't have much to do at that time. The blade asks how he can touch her, and he replies he already said, now she's his. With pink nails, she sends a slash he manages to dodge, stepping back. The blade takes advantage to get some distance. And boy, this is the strongest weapon I've ever seen a protagonist have around. It's really a danger to society. She asks who he is. Seeing the shadow leaving her body, she wants to know if he's the hair. Or at least she wants to know why he has the hair's energy. And he says yes, he's the hair. Now that he's the master, it's good for her to stay quiet and bow her head. Harem is seething with anger, saying he's just a kid. She attacks him, saying she won't accept this. While defending himself, Cheyenne knows the blade's goal is to steal the user's body, so there won't be much to do. She's about to hit him when he wonders if he should go easy or not. With a smirk, he activates control of the demonic blade. Harem is thrown to the ground, not understanding what happened. Shen warns he'll only say this once, it's good for her to accept it, while he's being nice. Suppressed, Harem wants to know how he's managing to use this ability. Shen activates control of the blade again, burying her head in the ground. Before she can say anything, she activates a few more times. Seeing her buried, he asks if she understands now, and she says she really recognizes him as the master now. He's about to use the power again when she calls him Lord. With that, Cheyenne completed the objective there, and wonders if he should return before they miss him. Harem in his hand says she's eager to feel the fresh air outside, and curious about his name, she asks him. Upon hearing his name, the blade asks if he really was chosen as the hair. Cheyenne says yes, but it was in the past life. Harem is confused about this past life thing, and he says he died once. She's even more confused, thinking he's crazy. As he approaches the sword, she says it's sleeping, and our protagonist warns the owner will appear in 20 years. Harem wants to know how he knows that while he already pulled the blade. Without hesitation, he cuts the handle. She's curious about why that. Cheyenne says he has no idea anymore, and it'll be an interesting future. In the morning, a carriage was leaving the Verde Castle. The promised date as Cheyenne had come very quickly. He introduces himself to his father, who says he wants to ask once more. Is he really determined to go to the front line? Cheyenne says yes, his heart is already there. The father then tells the knight to release the beast. The knight takes a scroll, and Cheyenne wonders if he'll use his summoning spell. He opens a scroll glowing with a red pentagram. A creature with flaming back starts to emerge. Cheyenne recognizes it as a hellhound. Seeing the creature, he assured his father, and the knights prepared this test well for him. Everyone's hands are ready to draw the sword, and he realizes everyone is being cautious with his life. The father warns that everything comes with responsibility, and he must prove his will by passing this test. Hearing the word test, the knight hesitates. He was confused when Shan asked to train against him. Our protagonist said he had 3 days until the test and needed to prepare as best as possible, and he asked the knight for help in practicing combat techniques. The knight said if he wanted to train, he should ask Krantz or someone his age. Shan plays dumb, saying he doesn't know why, but Krantz messes him up every time he sees him. In a difficult situation, the soldier realizes the protagonist smiles when the knight says he'll grant this wish. However, he won't draw his sword, and all he'll do is defend himself. Cheyenne thanked him and asked for just one more thing. He wasn't to inform his father about anything that happened there, and that was an order. Yelkin hesitated, not understanding why he said that, when suddenly Cheyenne lunged towards him. Yelkin managed to defend the first attack. However, he was disbelieving at the strength of a 10-year-old kid. He realized Cheyenne's movements were very fast, vanishing in front of him. Cheyenne was already above him while he wondered where the kid went. He felt something and turned to block the attack. Cheyenne kept striking relentlessly, and after a few attacks he gave up, saying unfortunately he still couldn't beat him. But he told Yelkin it was a great job and thanked him for the help. Almost exhausted, Yelkin said he did a great job too. While he couldn't believe that Skinny Kid was so strong, if what he felt that day is correct, the current young master will be able to pass any test given to him. The Hellhound faces Cheyenne and lunges for the attack. He seems calm seeing the creature coming to bite. A slash passes through the Hellhound's eye, causing it to fall to the ground. Looking back, Cheyenne says with his current strength, he needs to finish this as quickly as possible. The Hellhound gets up and he knows he has to end it with this attack. He prepares and suddenly the slash has already passed through the Hellhound's head, completing the blow with a blade throw from the air. The present knights are all startled, while his father smiles. Seeing the carcass on the ground, Cheyenne says it's a waste he let so much blood be lost. But he knows if he starts drinking that, the guys will think he's crazy, so it's better to leave it be. Wallace then comes to congratulate him, saying it was incredible. Since that's the case, they'll meet again on the front lines. Cheyenne thanks his father, while Karen is calling for him. Asking if she's just a kitchen knife, our boy says no, she's a demonic blade. She then wonders why she's not being used. She can only regain her powers by consuming blood. Heading towards the Hellhound, she's begging just for a lick, but Cheyenne tells her not to worry. He'll use her as much as she wants. The northern battlefield is invaded by ogres. The bell tolls, and Wallace warns not to let any escape alive. The soldiers raise their swords, activating the Salvation Prison. A huge shining cross appears on the battlefield, and a magic circle appears at the feet of all the ogres. Ropes of light come out of the circles and bind them, and Wallace orders everyone to attack. With them immobilized, the soldiers seem to easily defeat them. One of the ogres screams as a soldier approaches. He grips the blade tightly, preparing for the attack, and with a single blow, he decapitates the monster. Nearby, Shan and Emily watch the battle, and she's terrified. She asks him why he brought her to a place like this. Cheyenne thinks strangely he missed this place. Wallace asks him what he thinks about being on the front lines, and he says he's kind of nervous. The father warns he can return anytime and that he could die in this place, so he better not let his guard down. Shannon smiles, saying he'll keep that in mind. On the front lines, death is common and 3 or 4 battles happen every day. Strategically, the knights try to prevent the advance of the demonic lines. And the tent where Cheyenne is the farthest from everything and the safest. The problem is, now that he's being watched, he can't find a chance to feed Karen. While he wonders if he'll have to wait until night, he asks Emily what she's doing under the covers. She's desperate, saying Duke warned that they could die at any moment. Shannon tells her to pack up and leave then. However, she screams it's impossible, he can't be without her. It's full of demonic monsters here. Who will take care of him if she flees? Suddenly, she leaves the tent, saying she'll get something to eat, while Shan wants to ask about the cloak he requested. But she just ignores him. He gets angry because this damn woman never obeys him. Sometime later, he placed a doll of himself in bed thinking maybe that's enough. When Emily asks if he's really going to exercise in this place, she says he's very diligent, and if Duke finds out, he'll be proud. Shannon ignores her and says he's leaving and she can sleep there peacefully. He looks back and warns to say he's sleeping if anyone asks anything. At this moment, they need as many soldiers on the front line as possible, so now he can move freely. He activates an ability that allows him to glide with the mists, and he advances to a dangerous area where he finds a group of hellhounds. However, he's excited because there's the perfect place to test Karen, who, when summoned, smells blood, and tells Cheyenne she can't take it anymore. She needs to cut through something. The hellhounds leap towards him, and Cheyenne tells her to feed as much as she wants. With that, he begins to kill the creatures, activating an ability called Furious Mist Storm. After finishing the hellhounds, he pulls the blood from their heads and drinks it. With a crazy look, he says that's what he wants, while Karen is excited. He tells her they'll keep hunting, and she says those creatures are too weak. But Cheyenne warns her not to worry since the night is young, and there's plenty of monsters. Karen says she's excited. A carriage travels through a mountain, and inside it, a girl with white hair is transported. Inside, the person warns that place is very dangerous, and they should retreat. But the girl says not to treat her like a child. She's a princess of the empire, and it's her duty to assist the family. And if a woman says anything else, she'll take out her anger on her. The girl then warns that young Master Verdi is also on the front lines and is the same age as her. She asks if Duke had the courage to bring the youngest boy. The friend replies no, actually it was the boy who volunteered. Since they're the same age, they can be friends. But the princess says she's not interested and she's going to sleep. Her friend replies okay. But the princess now wants to know what the name is. The helper replies it's Cheyenne Verti. Under the moonlight, she ponders that name. Meanwhile, harpies are being cut down, and Wallace is giving orders to look after those who were injured. On the battlefield, dozens of harpies and griffins are dead as they're ready to return to base. He looks to the side and someone pulls a sword from atop a harpy. It was Shannon who participated in that battle. Wallace asks if he's adjusting well to the front lines. Shannon says yes, he's learning a lot every day, and his father warns that he thought you would want to go back home. But he's been here for a while now and he's very proud. These words leave Cheyenne incredulous, and his father leaves, saying there's something to talk about tomorrow morning. Cheyenne agrees while thinking it's the first time he's seen his father with a proud expression. That same night, Cheyenne went out to hunt once again. What he found was a death worm that normally hides deep in the valleys. Karam told him he looked very tired because he wouldn't let her take over the body, but Cheyenne said she was being too obvious. She insisted, saying the worm's flesh regenerated much faster than he could hit. Despite not wanting to accept it, he knew that was true, and he's been in this place for over a month now, every day drinking the blood of countless demonic creatures, so why can't he do it yet? The worm attacks him once again, and he says there's no chance then. He warns he'll play by Karam's rules for a while now, which she's now happy about, saying it's time to go crazy. Activating the 9th assassination technique, the manifestation of the demonic blade. Numerous cuts appear around the worm while Cheyenne's face is black. It agonizes, and our hero says he'll cut it into pieces. Under the moonlight, he activates the ability, 8 fluttering petals, cutting through the worm with numerous slashes from top to bottom. The worm's mouth explodes, and our boy is demonic. Meanwhile, one of the knights touches the blood of a hellhound and says it hasn't been long since it died. It's Yulkin and Wallace examining the area and say it seems to be the work of the demonic tribe. However, looking at the body, the father says those cuts seem somewhat familiar. Maybe it's déjà vu? Yulkin appears from behind a rock and says he has to see something. Wallace asks what it is when he raises the torch. They see the death worm cut in half, which scares Wallace. He says he can't believe that organization is behind this. The manifestation of the demonic blade hands over his body to Karen, who can now use her maximum power. But if he gets distracted, his mind will also be completely consumed. The next day, he wakes up saying he's crazy for using that power just to kill a simple demonic beast. He gets out of bed saying he was lucky he drank so much blood. Otherwise, his body would have been destroyed. Something Karen says she understands. He looks like a 10-year-old boy, but doesn't speak or act like one. Not to mention it's the first time he's used her, but he seems too familiar. He even knew all the geography of the valley and fought as if he mastered the mist technique for over 30 years. Kieran remembers he said he died once, and now she's sure. He's a regressor, isn't he? Cheyenne says he had explained that very well already, and she just hadn't understood. The poor thing is baffled. She screams at him, saying how is she supposed to understand such a serious matter when he speaks so simply. Cheyenne says explaining is kind of boring. She says by watching the way he fights, it couldn't have been easy to defeat him. With the demonic blade, he must have lost to the bearer of the Drandark, which means he either lost a duel or was betrayed. Remembering the expression he made towards the holy sword, she's sure he was betrayed. She says if he's back and preparing for revenge, he better remember one thing. If she finds him lazy or weak for a second, she'll devour him on the spot. Shen punches her and tells her to shut up because he's the master. The poor thing falls to the ground all bruised, while he smiles, thinking she really has the same personality as before. He then leaves the tent and looking to the side, he realizes everything is chaotic. Amelia calls for him and he asks if something happened. Scared, she says today they found the body of a demonic beast at the entrance to the valley. Shen hesitates, afraid they found the body of the deathworm. Amelia warns it's been a long time since they found such a high-level beast near the borders. Shen asks if there's anything else to say, and she gets scared. He asked again, did anyone say anything about me, any rumors? Suddenly, a knight appears behind calling his name. It's Yulkin, who says the Duke wants to talk. Shen knows he's in trouble because yesterday when he was hunting, his father's group suddenly appeared. He had to abandon the Hellhound's bodies without being able to clean anything. All he didn't want was to attract attention before entering the academy, and so he presents himself in his father's tent. Sure, his father already knows everything. His father greets him while Shan hesitates about what he'll say. Wallace tells him to sit, and Shan frowns, wondering how he'll get out of this now. His father says he'll be direct and asks what he was doing last night. Sweating, Cheyenne lies, saying he went to bed early. Wallace seems to believe it for a second, but finds it very strange since the cut on the wolf was very similar to his blade. Is he jumping to conclusions by thinking that? Shannon asks if something is wrong, while Wallace finds it unbelievable that a young boy has done something like that. Shannon calls his father again, who asks if he heard about what happened last night, and he warns that they still need to investigate, but it seems to be something from the Mist organization. Hesitant, Shannon asks, Mist. His father explains that it's an organization that has existed since ancient times, and they don't know its goal. But they have massacred countless nobles under the pretext of purification. Only that suddenly they disappeared. The last time they were seen was 300 years ago, but the same mist was present at the Deathworm, and that residue of power is only left by those who venerate the god of the mist. In his speculation, whoever killed the worm belongs to the mist. Cheyenne is impressed that he managed to track down an organization that disappeared 300 years ago with just that. Wallace says he doesn't know why they disappeared, but he tells him to be cautious and he will report it to the Empire. Our protagonist is relieved. It seems he will be able to escape suspicion. While his father thinks it doesn't make sense to connect such a young boy to all this, and he tells him that the discussion is over. And then he asks if he'd heard about the visit coming today. Cheyenne says he heard it was someone from the royalty. His father approaches, saying yes, and then he wants to ask him for a little favor. Sweating, Cheyenne is curious about this favor. A knight sounds a signal announcing the arrival of your majesty. Wallace and everyone on the battlefield bow and welcome the Emperor. The Emperor, who looks like a pale vampire, says hi to Wallace. He approaches him and says they are old friends, no need to be formal. Then he asks if the boy next to him is his son. Cheyenne introduces himself and says he's the youngest of the Vert family. The Emperor tells Wallace it's amazing to see that his son is on the front line. Really, his kids are extraordinary. The favor the father asked Cheyenne for was to introduce himself as his son, because in his past life he always stayed hidden and nobody even knew he existed. The Emperor then says it was the perfect time for him to introduce himself as well. A shoe descends from the carriage and she introduces herself as Erin Severus, the 5th princess of the Empire. Cheyenne remembers that she was known as the Unlucky Princess. One of the favors his father asked for was to escort the girl. He was confused because he wasn't very strong and wanted to know why his father asked for that. His father explained that it was just for him to keep her company since they would be entering the same academy and are the same age. Cheyenne remembers that in his past life he saw her at the academy while changing classes a few times. Wallace explained that it's always good to know someone from the royal family, and even though she won't be staying here for long, it's a good opportunity. Our protagonist thought he wasn't very interested, but he understood his father's intentions. He wanted him to have a relationship with her like his father has with the Emperor. However, Cheyenne says that his father chose the wrong person since that girl wouldn't serve his purpose. He sighs, saying he can't reveal the reason since only he knows the future. As inconvenient as it may be, for now he will have to follow these requests. As they walked with the troops, Erin asked why the lake was red. Cheyenne explained that it was the Blood Lake and there was no special reason for that color. The injured creatures jump into it to recover mana, and because of that, it has that color. Eren asks if it's red, then why are there a lot of monster remains, and Cheyenne says that's basically it. She then asks what's at the end of it. Cheyenne says there's a demon kingdom there, and she wants to know if there's a demon king there. Our boy warns that if the lake continues, she will find the king in flesh and bone. He's teasing her for asking such a silly question. Suddenly, they see a flash of light. A yellow smoke cuts through the sky, and Eren asks what that is. Cheyenne says a golden light means the entry of demonic creatures. She gets scared, asking if they've already arrived, while Wallace orders everyone to protect the Majesty and that they are going to the third outpost. The Emperor says he's disappointed, and Wallace asks what he means by that. The Pale One then draws his sword and says he's not here just for a visit, it's because he was already bored and missing the battle. Wallace lowers his head, saying he understands, and the Emperor tells his group that they will assist the eradication team in getting rid of the creatures. Wallace calls Shan to go too, who responds immediately. Eren is confused and asks if he's really going to fight against the creatures. He says yes, he's here in the background, but he always fights on the front line. She says she wants to go with him too. He questions what she's doing, while she says they're the same age, so there's no problem. But Cheyenne warns that the battlefield is not a playground. But she's insistent, saying it doesn't matter, she wants to go. He then calls Yelkin, who appears behind her and says he'll take her to the safest area possible. She turns around and Yelkin says, "Come with me, princess." Yelling at Cheyenne, she says he's insolent and for treating a princess of the Empire like that. Approaching, he warns that her dilly-dallying here will cause a lot of people to die on the front line. Will she take responsibility for that? She starts crying, after all, she's just a child. He then turns away and tells her to leave soon and stop being a spoiled brat. The three remain silent. In the battlefield, the soldiers are being absorbed by what seems like demonic slugs. Wallace raises his sword and tells them to return to formation. He points in the direction and says they should protect the Majesty and kill all those creatures. With a war cry, the soldiers enter the battle. Dion Severos had two wives, one named Anna, who had already died, and another known as Cassandra, who was the current ruler of the Empire. The first wife bore two, and the second two more. But the fifth princess was born from a peasant woman, so everyone looked down on her. Still, she did not submit to anyone. As a descendant of the imperial family, she fulfilled all her obligations and studied more than anyone else. However, many were against her. With false accusations, they expelled her from the imperial palace and she was taken to an isolated place, thus receiving the title of Unlucky Princess. Harem asks if that's what he heard from his father in his past life. Cheyenne says when it comes to politics and reign, things are like that, while the electric slugs are being cut on the battlefield. Watching from afar the explosions, he recognizes that the Emperor is really amazing. He plants the sword in the ground and activates a sacred ray, easily defeating all the slugs around him. Cheyenne heard that this guy's magic reaches 8 stars. If he hadn't become Emperor, he would be the president of the Magic Council. Obviously, these medium creatures are nothing to him. A while later, Wallace and the Emperor are drinking together, talking about the old times. The Emperor talks about the current state of the Empire. In recent years, many nobles have been murdered and tension is rising. Wallace says this probably has something to do with it. The Emperor reveals that all the murdered nobles were considered corrupt officials, and a black mist is being found in all the crimes. Does he know anything about it? Wallace says that the followers of the Black Mist seem to have restarted their activities, since he also found something near the base. The Emperor says that could be the case, but they will have to investigate a little more. He even wanted to thank these guys for getting rid of these trash, but this is increasing the tension in the Empire too much. And there's something that particularly caught his attention. One of the nobles said that the 5th princess was involved in these incidents. Wallace asked, are people trying to connect her to this? The Emperor says he knows it doesn't make sense to blame a child, and asks Wallace to take care of his daughter if he dies. Wallace makes the oath of this promise, and the Emperor thanks him. That night it was raining in the tents, and Emily was asking if he really did that. Cheyenne just ignored it, saying he was leaving, but Emily wanted to know if he really said those things to the princess. This way, he'll never be able to get married, he'll live a lonely life. Cheyenne told her to forget about it, he was going out to train, and she asked if he was really going in this rain. He told her not to worry and go to sleep, only Eren was clearly already there. Emily got a scare and asked who she was. She lowered her hood and asked if he was going somewhere. But if he's not busy, she wanted to talk about something. Seeing the princess, Emily's eyes even sparkled. Eren asked how long they had been there, and Cheyenne said it had been over a month. However, he wants to know her reason for being there. She hesitated without saying anything, and both asked Emily to leave them alone, who was already smiling mischievously. And she left, saying they should enjoy the tent. Cheyenne knows he's 40 and not at all interested in her. Eren apologizes for what happened that morning. Awkwardly, Cheyenne says he also acted wrong, and she laughs, saying she would have done the same. She says she knows he is recognized by those around him, unlike her. Cheyenne didn't imagine she had that kind of personality. She says she knows he goes to school and wants to be his friend. However, Cheyenne interrupts her, apologizes, and says unfortunately he can't help her. If she's here to get closer to him, it's better for her to leave. She lowers her head, saying she only said that so they could get closer, but he's very cruel. Does he think she's just a princess by title? Cheyenne says nothing. Crying, she says she understands now. From his perspective, he can't gain anything by getting close to her and apologizes for wasting his time. Maybe she made a mistake thinking they could have a conversation, but he's completely different from Lord Eshel. Hearing that name gives Cheyenne a fright. He turns and grabs her arm, but she tells him to let go and asks why he's acting like that. Shannon asks her how she knows about his older brother. She says she met him when she visited the academy last year, and he told her to continue being that strong princess. Knowing his brother's nature very well, he knows it doesn't make sense for him to be giving advice. This means his manipulation has already begun at this moment. Cheyenne then says he'll give her some advice, but suddenly the tent starts shaking. Emily enters suddenly and tells them to run, but a pillar is almost crushing them already. The explosion happens and Emily is thrown from the tent. From afar, everyone sees a giant ogre and recognizes it as the young master's tent. Emily is desperate, crying for the two, while the ogre raises its club. The emperor asks what he means by that, and at night informs that the tent where Princess Erin was has been attacked by a high-level creature. He then orders to bring all the troops from the battlefront. While wanting to know who she encountered in such a dangerous place, the giant ogre continues to destroy the entire back part of the base, and hidden there, Cheyenne can't believe there's an ogre in that part, a type of creature that only appears in the depths of the valley. He's wondering if maybe it's his fault when Emily calls for him. She's crying, saying she thought he was dead. Remembering the moment of impact, he managed to grab Erin and dodge the blow. Obviously, someone who subdued the Demon King's army wouldn't die to an ogre. Erin asks if the knights will be okay, and Emily reassures her that everything is fine, and they are very strong. But she cries, saying if she weren't there, this wouldn't have happened. It's all her fault. The knights say it's okay, their duty is to protect them. Smiling, one of them says she can trust that they will give their lives. However, Shan warns him to run, and an ogre's hand is coming from behind. The poor guy is crushed and coughs up blood. Soon he's lifted by the giant ogre who is on the backs of the two. Shannon tells the princess to stay on his back, and the ogre seems to smell something. He recognizes it as he thought, and these monsters are there because of him. He's going to tell Emily to grab the princess and run, but before he finishes, she already grabbed her and ran off. The poor guy thinks the girl is fast even when it's time to run away. The ogre is coming to crush him, and he won't be able to use the demon blade so that no one suspects him. He's curious why these creatures are hunting him and what smell they're sensing. Harem says to him that he's been drinking the blood of many demon creatures, and now for the monsters, he has a terrible smell that attracts them. Cheyenne gets angry. The damn sage knew this and didn't tell him. She smiles, asking if he forgot that all she wants is his body. He grabs her and tightens his grip, turning her into the dagger who wants to know what he's doing. Chen realizes he won't have an option. He'll have to go all out against this beast. He throws himself, saying he doesn't care, and the ogre comes swinging. With one swift movement, he manages to tear the creature's arm off. Then he appears behind its neck and slices it as well. The boy's got swag, and with just 2 cuts, the beast is lying dead on the ground. He says now it's just a matter of killing the curious ones. In front of him, there's a bunch of creatures that make Karam say she's very excited for this festival. However, he gets a shock when a demonic dragon appears. The dragon roars to the skies, and Karam tells him not to be afraid. It's still just a little one. Shan immediately activates the manifestation of the demon blade. Pointing the dagger, he says it needs to devour him. Meanwhile, the army is facing the ogres that invaded the base. The Emperor and Wallace have just killed the last one, and he asks if there's any trace of the princess. Wallace apologizes, saying she was in his son's tent, and the Emperor says he must be worried about his son. He replies that no, he doesn't have to worry about that creature. The important thing is the princess. The Emperor is shocked. Wow, this father is cruel. Suddenly, someone informs them that they found Princess Erin and she comes to speak with her father. He asks if she's hurt and she says no, but he needs to hurry to save him. Young Master Shine is in danger because of her. He tells her to calm down and explain properly. Wallace asks Emily if she's Cheyenne's maid and she confirms. He then tells her to explain quickly what happened. Trembling, Emily explains that Cheyenne drew the attention of the creatures so the princess could escape. Wallace doesn't say anything, and one of the knights says he remembers the location. If they have the command, they can go there to rescue him. The Emperor yells at Wallace, wanting to know why he hasn't ordered them to go already, but Wallace says they won't go. The Emperor and Erin are shocked, asking what he's talking about. Wallace says the recovery of His Highness is the priority. If this place falls, the entire demonic beasts will invade the Empire. They first need to rebuild the base because that's how they'll prevent further losses. Emily then asks what they'll do with the young master. Wallace says the boy has already fulfilled his obligation by evacuating the princess, and that's how things work in the Vert House. The Emperor and Erin observe him saying that, while she thinks again it's all her fault. Suddenly, they hear a roar in the sky, and when Erin looks up, the dragon is passing by. However, she's incredulous when she sees our boy holding onto its tail and being carried away. In this world, dragons are the closest creature to the gods, besides being considered the most evolved living existence. Normally, it's an honor to meet such a noble creature, so why is it flying so close to these people? Eren screams for him, and the Emperor asks Wallace what his son is doing there. Wallace is silent, and the Emperor keeps asking why he's not doing anything. While up there, Cheyenne doesn't know what he's doing. He just wanted to drink a bit of blood, but now things have gotten complicated. As soon as the dragon appeared, he challenged it. He saw a bunch of weak monsters attack him and sent them flying to the front. He used the Furious Mist ability and cut through the entire battlefield. He approached the dragon and realized it really wasn't an adult yet. But the dragon prepared an attack and the boy got scared. The explosion happened and a laser cut through the battlefield. He managed to dodge, and by the dragon's head, he told it it's just a baby. So how does it have the courage to spit on him when they meet? He sent a slash that hit the dragon right in the eye. He was floating midair, and the dragon took advantage to attack him head-on. When he was about to be pierced, he smirked and activated the mist blade, using the 8 fluttering peels to cut the dragon from various directions. The beast fell and exploded the entire ground, and he felt that it really was impossible to kill a dragon. His shoulders were already done. But now that on the ground, it's time for the final blow. The dragon flaps its wings to create distance, and Cheyenne knows it's going to use the laser again. However, when he looked, the dragon was fleeing in fear, flapping its wings. Cheyenne jumped towards it, shouting, "You won't escape, you coward." And that's how he ended up hanging onto the beast. The problem is that when he glanced down, everyone could see him. So how will he explain this? Karen asks why he's acting like a statue, and he asks if she doesn't see everyone down there. Karen was angry, saying that she'll have to use her now that she's invoked her. But Cheyenne says that if he does anything demonic, he'll be stopped. She shouts, "So what will you do, kid?" He says he's thinking and tells her to shut up. Down below, Wallace begins to conjure a light magic. Cheyenne recognizes instantly that it's an 8-star attack. He can't believe his father would attack his own son like this. And that's exactly what he does as he raises his sword to the heavens. Cheyenne is desperate, wondering what kind of father he has. But the dragon descends toward the swords and starts dodging everything. He says it's good work by the dragon, congratulating his friend and telling him not to take it. The problem is another one appears behind him. Coming almost in his face, he already knows he can't dodge this one. It hits his leg where he was clinging, and Cheyenne is thrown. As he falls, he's sad, thinking he lost his lunchbox. While Karen is telling him to protect himself, he falls headfirst. Our guy says he can't use any mist technique. She comes at him, telling him to stop being cautious or he'll die like this. He tells her to shut up, he's thinking. In the end, he really won't die, and she can't believe he's going to do this. Until he has an idea. Down below is the Red River. He says he has no choice but there. Someone from afar observes the dragon fleeing and says it's rare to see such a sight. The guy behind him says it's just a kid who must have gotten lost from the group. The silver-haired guy points in a direction and asks if there are demons there. But the friend responds that there, in fact, is the human region. He looks at the horizon and gets curious, saying that dragons shouldn't be defeated by humans. Staying silent for a second, a guy with glasses asks if anything happened. He points, saying he feels a strange energy coming from that direction, almost familiar. The friend responds that they can go check it out. However, he's forbidden from annihilating absolutely everything out of boredom. He spreads his wings and says it's okay, he won't cause any trouble, and he flies off saying he'll be right back. Meanwhile, Shine is emerging from the Blood Lake. He throws himself onto the rock, cursing up to the 10th generation, and he asks Karen if she's alive. Karen, all slimy, tells him not to talk to her. She's contemplating how to kill him. He says he'll give her a little wash when they get back, and she says okay then. But she tells him to wake up to reality, they're in the demon realm. Cheyenne tells her not to worry, it's very rare to find a high-level demon in this place. Someone behind him says he knew he would find something interesting. Cheyenne is startled. This is a voice I'll never forget. The demon behind him asks if he's a human, and Cheyenne knows he's the demon king Valkyrian. He remembers that in the past, this guy said the same thing, that Cheyenne was as if evil had gathered in one person. Valkyrian asks why he's not answering. Is he not human by any chance? In an instant, he's on his back, asking if he really wants to fight. Cheyenne is startled and turns, but Valkyrian easily dodges. But he managed to cut a tiny strand of hair. Leaving him impressed, he says that indeed races have endless possibilities. Karen asks him who he is, and the protagonist replies that he's the Demon King. She says if he's the Demon King, he has no chance of winning. He knows it's impossible. The best option would be to escape from there. However, his hand is trembling and he wonders if he can do that. But he's surprised when Valkyrian tells him to relax. He thinks he came here to fight a kid, for God's sake, and lies on the ground saying, "Do you really think I'm going to hit a child?" Cheyenne is all confused there, wondering why this guy is lying down. Valkyrian says he will ask one more time if he's a human. Cheyenne says yes, and Valkyrian wants to know how he ended up there. Our protagonist explains that he was carried by the sea, and the guy says it seems to be his first time in the realm, right? However, he senses strange energy and asks Cheyenne what he is. He says he's just a normal human. Valkyrian says he says that, but it seems like he knows who he is. Our guy says it doesn't make sense. It's the first time they've met. Valkyrian stretches his arms, saying it might be because it's the first time he's seen a human too. He then asks why he came here while wondering why this guy is so calm. Valkyrian says he felt a strange energy while he was walking around. He says that as the Demon King, he needs to keep an eye on the lands he rules. Valkyrian then gets up and tells Cheyenne to repeat what he said. Cheyenne says, "You're the Demon King who keeps an eye on the lands he rules." He points to his face and says he's not surprised. Now he's sure he's been seen somewhere. What kind of kid reacts like this? Cheyenne knows that the invasion of the demon realm is about to begin, but this guy is completely different from what he knew. What happened to change his attitude so much? So he asks him as the Demon King what he wants to do. Valkyrian smiles, saying he's quite reckless to ask something like that to the Demon King. And then he says it's obvious, right? As long as his subordinates are alive and eating, there's nothing else he can do. But everything changes if someone wants to change that. In that case, he'll end them all. That's his simple obligation as the Demon King. For a moment, Cheyenne felt the same demonic aura from the guy who attacked the Empire the first time. Somehow, he has to prevent that from happening. He then asks Valkyrian if he wants to make a deal and asks what it is. Cheyenne says that in the future, something will happen to him, an incident that will put all his subordinates at risk. Valkyrian asks him to explain properly the nonsense he's talking about. He explains that he doesn't know exactly how it will happen, but it will be an incident that will become the catalyst to start the war against humanity. Valkyrian crosses his arms, asking if he really thinks he, the Demon King, would attack his land. And Cheyenne says that's why he wants to make a deal so that no matter what happens, at least he won't start a war. Valkyrian says he has no idea what he's talking about, but if he accepts it, what does he gain from it? The protagonist says that no matter what happens, he will help the Demon King. Approaching him, Valkyrian says he seems to know something. He's sweating, and Valkyrian asks him his name. After introducing himself, Valkyrian says he will keep that promise as the King of Demons. He flies off, saying it's good for him to keep his as well since this is a deal. And he smiles, saying it's now sealed. After contacting the Demon King, some knights found Cheyenne. Seeing him emerging from the Red Lake, they said it was a miracle he was still alive. And with that, he received the title of the one who survived the demonic dragon. He was then taken to the monastery on the front lines, a place used as a military hospital. Cheyenne asks someone to repeat what they said. Erin is hesitant to say anything. She holds back and shouts, asking if he wants to be hers. The poor guy is confused, not understanding what she means by that, but he says he's not interested. She obviously gets startled. She starts crying again, saying it was expected. She really is the fifth princess with no power at all. Cheyenne in bed is thinking she's really starting to annoy him. He knows Princess Erin is the weak link in the imperial family, and the way she's risking it, her end is obvious. The problem is he can't shake off the idea that his damn brother is behind her death. He then says she's right. Currently, she really can't offer any benefit to him. She has no possession, takes a hit. Besides, it's extremely risky to get involved with her politically, takes another hit. But he says he'll take care of her until she figures out what's necessary. She asks if he's really going to do this. Cheyenne says yes, it's a promise, so she doesn't need to worry. She gets up, saying she understood that when she manages to turn things around, he recognizes her power. She points at him, saying she doesn't know when, but she will make him recognize her power. He says he's very eager, while thinking she was depressed just a second ago. Before leaving, she says there's one more thing, and thanks him for surviving. Then she leaves, and he stays silent. In the depths of the camps in a forest nearby, a hooded guy looks around. He takes a square in his hand and smiles, saying that now it's almost done. A voice asks him, "Reynold Crimson, was that you?" He can't move his body as if he's being held by invisible chains. The person behind him says it's a small dimensional box, and considering the timeline, it was before it was commercialized. This box can hold anything as long as the person desires. From behind, Cheyenne says that's the masterpiece created by the Magic Council. He observed the guy for a whole year smuggling things from the Empire. He grabs the box, saying he'll take it now. Magical Knight of 7 Stars, Reynold Crimson, who asks who he is. Seeing him, he recognizes him as Cheyenne Vuri. He throws the items from the box on the ground while Reynold wants to know how he found out about it. Cheyenne ignores him, saying he must have an informant to know where to be at the right time. Reynold keeps insisting he has no idea what he's talking about, but Cheyenne says he can't lie because the blood of those creatures is already being sold in the Empire. That's how the Lice sent him that Hellhound blood gift. The guy is sweating, wondering who informed this kid and what's happening. He has no idea how Cheyenne trapped him, but as long as he can move a bit. And then he extends his hand, using a fire magic to kill Cheyenne. He gets startled, and the explosion comes towards him. Seeing the smoke, Reynold says it's a good thing he took this seriously. You really can't underestimate the son of the Verts. Then he finally relaxes. But suddenly his hand is cut off. He screams in pain and can't understand what that mist in front of him is. Seeing Cheyenne, he can't believe he belongs to the mist. But he grabs him by the neck and throws him against the tree. Cheyenne gives him 2 options: either he admits and dies peacefully, or he doesn't admit and dies in agony. In the trading area in the western part of the field, people are organizing some boxes. They see there are 2 potion boxes and are excited. They're just curious about how much is in that big box. But upon opening it, they both get startled. It was just Reynolds' head. From the mountain, Karen asks if he's really going to let the other guys live. He says yes, that's enough as a warning. These guys always smuggled demon items into the Empire. The items then reached the Magic Council, a place where people did any kind of madness to understand magic. Cheyenne says what they're going to do with demon blood is unthinkable, so they need to be separated. Karen says in this new life he's only living for others, but he says he's only preventing other people from using demon blood. In the Empire, in a certain mansion, Eshel is receiving a letter, and he finds out that Cheyenne has just gone to the front line with his father. There's a succulent girl in bed. This bastard is a villain but knows how to enjoy life. She asks if this Cheyenne isn't the younger brother of another mother. Eshel says yes and says that Kid is trouble in several ways. So we'll have to go there and leave a like on that video. That way he helps Mamoru produce some juicy content for his viewers, activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out.